bleep, blurp. Oh, that's what I'm gonna do now.
Future show.
Welcome to the show.
I will cut
We
you.
are the robots.
Bleep blurp blurp bleep blurp 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 bleep
Mack
blurp blurp.
Flash 5 3000.
Yeah, just kidding. It's not robots. It's us. I know you thought it was. You thought it was robots, but
You thought you went to the future.
if you take a look, we might actually be robots.
You don't know.
Who knows?
You don't know.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Mack Flash 5. These are the boys. These are the Mack Flash. We are the Mack Flash 5.
Hello. Good evening.
Hi. Good evening.
Good morning.
No, it's good morning.
Good morning. Good evening.
Good morning, America.
Sometime in the future.
Still wonderful.
That's
why I bring both. I'm like, if it's morning, if it's evening,
Yeah,
whatever
we're
you're watching, I'm
We're
ready
smashing
for it.
beers, and this goes live at 8 a.m. We should say it's live. Just smashing beers 8 a.m.
It's live. Well, it's not live. As a matter of fact, it's happening in the future. Ooh. These are the top 5 futuristic movies or movies of the future. Only caveat on this one was it had to be Earth's future. So based on our timeline, did it have to happen on Earth? No, as long as it could be a space story that takes place, but on our timeline in the future. But it could also be a movie about what is no longer the future and had been made long time ago about a time that's already gone by. I'm making this complicated. Let's take a look at top 5 right now, movies from the future. And starting with me, I was the first one. I came up with it, and mine's a comedy. It's I think one that you expected. Yeah, go figure. Go figure. One you expected from me. I wrote down "Go Away Baton." It's got electrolytes. It's what plants crave. Water like from the toilets. Basically, Idiocracy. Of course.
Nice.
Idiocracy.
I thought that was going to be your number
the
one.
Future. I guess it was the future.
You mean the present right now? Yeah.
Oh my God, it's scary. So what's fun, and I'm sure a lot of you guys did this as well. So it was made in 2006, and it takes place in 2505. I actually wrote down the years that they all take place. I'm sure you guys did this too. So 2505. I love the idea, exactly what you guys were saying. The reason this movie is great is because it was funny when we saw it. And the more things go on, the funnier that movie. I'm talking in real life. The more things go on, the funnier that movie gets. It's getting very prophetic, if you will. But again, that movie, I mean, it's a silly comedy that's very poignant and it's got some points. But really, why do you remember this movie? For those quotes I said before, for Brando, the thirst mutilator, for Ow My Balls, for President Camacho. And that's why I like Idiocracy.
I have to say, I think the more things go on, the more the less funny the movie gets.
100%, man.
I'm like,
yeah.
This is exactly that. How is it playing out that way? Like, judges
it's like the movie when you watch it, like when you first watch it, right? It's like, oh my gosh, this is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
How could any of these things happen? And then now they are happening, and
the president stuff is a home run.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Like how can this happen? How can this be our reality now? And it is.
Yeah.
Mike Judge, you are a prophet.
Yeah, I know.
The guy nails it. Like, it's like after, how do you nail office work and then that? And like he's got his finger on the pulse is what they say. So there you go. That's my number 5 top futuristic movie.
Thanks for putting that on there. That helped me not put it on mine. Sweet.
I was like, please no one else do it. Please no one else do it. And like you said, you thought it was going to be my number 1. I got to say, like, I'm glad it made the top 5. Matrix 3000 or Matrix.
That
sounds like a
mattress. That's my mattress.
Yeah.
That's the ones that the mattress 3000. That's the one where you put quarters in it and it vibrates.
Yeah, that's what does it.
That's what that one. Yeah, that's what it is. Matt, what do you got for us? Number 5.
My number 5 was released in 1968, but takes place in 2001. 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
It's not one of my favorite movies of all time by any means, but the first you know,
Your fifth favorite.
2/3 of it is fantastic in sense of this is where I guess in Stanley Kubrick's mind, or what's the author's name who helped him with the script? Clark. Yep. Clark. They thought, you know, we'd be traveling through space as easily as we travel from, you know, on airplanes. And well, by 2001, it hadn't happened, and it's kind of disappointing that way. But
that is the most shitty thing about that movie, how it's not true.
Well, not that it's not true. It's just it didn't happen.
That's what I mean. That it didn't become true. True.
How do you react when you watch the Jetsons? I just want to know.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's probably gonna be an honorable mention, but like the Jetsons movie, that's like the first. But we'll talk about that some other time.
Yeah.
You know, all of the models of the spaceships are amazing. All of the camera work that requires, you know, that has the illusion of somebody running up in and around, you know, as he works out. But basically, it was that idea of being able to space travel, you know, planet to planet as easily as possible. That didn't happen. That really was the appealing part of 2001 for me.
Nice. The commute
doors. Open the pod doors, pal.
Yeah.
the commutability of space. Being like, you know what? Why don't we go to Mars for the weekend?
Yeah.
Elon's trying, guys.
Yeah, we'll be there soon. We'll be there soon. Scott, number 5 futuristic movie.
So I was thinking, and there's probably ones, it's all about favorites, and there's probably ones in my honorable mention that are better movies. But I know this is a movie that will probably never come up on a list if it weren't today. So I squeezed it on my 5 because I wanted to take a minute or two to talk about. It was a movie that I saw back in high school. And I remember my friend Matt and I were super, super into it at the time. It was this really niche, quiet film. No one had really talked about it. And I honestly hadn't thought about it for 10 years until I was kind of compiling this list. I rewatched it again, and it's great. And it came out in 2002, and it was directed by Kurt Wimmer, and it's called Equilibrium.
Yeah.
Does anyone? Yeah. And it stars Christian Bale.
That was hovering on mine.
Yeah. So it's like an amalgamation of like Fahrenheit 451 and 1984 and The Matrix and all this. So what happens is in the future, in 2072, civilization is heavily sedated, and they take a pill every day. And what they do with that pill, and it sedates and suppresses their emotions and feelings. So it's all very robotic. It's very Logan's Run. It's very crisp, clean. Nobody has any human emotion. And Christian Bale and Taye Diggs are tasked, very Fahrenheit 451 style, with destroying all art, music, anything like that. What happens is Bale misses one of his doses. Slowly, he starts to feel. They come back to the surface, and in doing so, he joins the resistance, led by one of my favorite that guys from movies, William Finkner, who, if he's in a movie, I'm watching it. And basically, it's him kind of undercover, working, helping the resistance try and get civilization back. And then again, like I said, when you watch it, it's very quiet movie that kind of slipped under the radar around that time. Like I said, 2002 was, you know, Harry Potter's, Star Wars, The Matrix. They were all taking a lot of the attention. Lord of the Rings. So something like this just kind of slipped in almost as an indie film, and it's definitely worth the watch. What holds up best from it is the violence. It is incredibly violent film. It is very John Wick, like hand-to-hand combat. Yeah,
choreography is solid.
Yeah, especially really like at the very end when Bale storms. There's this incredible like 20-minute scene where he wears all white and he's just covered in blood by the end of it, and you're like, that was awesome. So for future, for the view of the future, for the way, you know, the statement it makes about civilization and feeling and suppressing emotion and stuff, and sedation, I do put Equilibrium as my number 5.
I do remember seeing part of that movie, and I may have seen most of it, but you know, one of those I watched it too late, but it was really good. It's when you started talking about the fight choreographies and how they were like just really well done, and a lot a like gun grabbing and
exactly
cool
all
moves.
That.
It was very cool. Very cool choice. I like that. That's good. That's good. Clone of AB. You got the shifty eyes going on now. What's your number 5 futuristic movie?
Okay, when François chose this topic, he's now 2 for 2 with topics that I absolutely love. All 5 of these movies I can not talk enough about. I'm going to talk a little bit about them tonight, but not hopefully not too much. My number 5 pick is a movie that I've loved since I saw it when I was a little kid, and it is a movie that supposedly takes place a little over 5 kilometers from this very spot, and it's a movie that is adored by that, and so much so that they are building a statue that should be unveiled in the wintertime.
Yes.
And of course, I'm talking about 1987, directed by Paul Verhoeven, RoboCop.
Of course.
In old Detroit. And so automatically, if a movie is set in Detroit, I'm already halfway loving it because I love Detroit and I love movies about Detroit. Obviously, this is a little different about Detroit. I love Paul Verhoeven. I think he's a genius as far as writing movies that are great satire. Between this and Starship Troopers, I think that there's some brilliant stuff going on here. And I think in RoboCop, he paints a picture of the future, and it doesn't give an exact future, but it's in the near future where things are sort of similar to what they are now. And this is in the 80s. So he's, again, like Mike Judge being kind of a prophet where corporations run the police departments, corporations run pretty much everything that's going on in society. You've got the police force that wants to strike. And you have, the criminal underworld that is also run by the corporations. So it's, again, it's kind of a snapshot in 1980 and in the late 80s of stuff that's kind of, front and center now. And so you look at it and he critiques it's like a European director coming in. I think he's from Denmark. He comes in and critiques America, like Ronald Reagan's America from the 80s, and this like love for guns and love for violence. And he, in most of his films, he over exaggerates the violence where it's like over the top and in your face and like ridiculous. But he's showing that like you love it, right? You like, especially America. America loves the violence. They're all about it. And so then he intercuts that with TV commercials of like the family playing like a battleship kind of game, like Nukem, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And like, and just brilliant stuff. And like that's the kind of stuff I love about his films, like the little things like that. There's the news reports where the reporters are talking about conflicts. One of the funniest things in there, and it's not really, I guess it's not funny, but it's kind of like, haha, is like there's a weapons satellite that malfunctions and wipes out like thousands of people, including 2 ex-US presidents, which I was like, oh, that's pretty funny. Like, and then like, yeah, it's just like, oh,
they feel the need to point that out of the thousands of people. Oh, and including 2 US presidents.
Yeah. But it's a brilliant film. I cannot rave enough about how much I love RoboCop. I just watched all these the other night, or over the course of this week, and RoboCop, like I said, to me is more poignant now than it has ever been, and that's saying something. That's, the movie came out in 1987. It's 2020. The fact that it's like just as powerful now, and the satire is just as more biting than it was in the actual 80s, is amazing. So my number 5, RoboCop.
Nice. The fact that they remade it not too long ago is a testament to the fact that the message still works, and that they didn't have to change. I mean, the movie wasn't as great, but they tried to go for the same message. Of course, that whole movie is about the humanity versus, the what makes you a person. If you replace every board on a ship until every board has been replaced, is it still the same ship, right? And the same thing with a person.
I think it didn't work because it didn't have the comedy, like they went for too direct. It was too serious. Whereas this one, like, it's you can take a little bit of the teeth out of it when you kind of make it campy and fun, right? Like the satire or the message isn't as like ridiculous like it was in that RoboCop. That was like as subtle as a brick hammer. Like it's like it's like whereas RoboCop, you can watch that just straight up and enjoy it, or you can dig deep into the the satirical and what it's actually saying about society. But
just for the scene of the guy coming out of the toxic waste and then getting hit by, hit by the
classic.
car. Just that alone is worth watching.
Yep.
Mike Bot 2075, welcome back. I hope your journey into the future was good. Oh, there it is. Let's
get this over with. Matt's wearing the hat.
Matt's wearing
the hat. We know that this is going in, and so most of my list falls under future movies that are so eerily believable that it's disturbing or plausible to happen. But this one falls under sort of the slapsticky, just enjoyed it kind of category. But why this made my list, other than it being an awesome movie, is for the little appliances and details of how future life might be just for the day-to-day, like we talked about this on another one, but like, the rehydrating pizza oven and the Pepsis that pop out of the counters at the cafes and all those kinds of things. And I really love this because now that we are in the future, seeing how spot on they were with some things, such as like, you have to touch the doorway to have the door open and stuff, like fingerprint identification and, face recognition, and like TVs that, when he's talking to needles and all these things where you're like, back then when you watched it, you were like, oh, that is unbelievable. We're never going to be able to do that. And now we can. And then other ones where we're like, yeah, that'll happen. And they still hasn't. And I just love that sort of the comparison between the two things. And so for me, every time I watch it, I just enjoy seeing those ones where I'm like, oh yeah, that's basically this now. Or like, I wonder if we'll ever get there. And it's just a fun film. That's why that one had to make it. So it's my number 5.
For sure.
That's a great one.
Where's our hoverboard at?
Yeah.
What drives me insane is that they called their shot and they were 1 year off the Cubs.
Oh, yeah.
That's nice.
But that's the Cubs' fault.
They lost in the NLCS in 2015, and everyone was like, "Oh!" And then they won it the next year. That would have been
not the Simpsons, guys.
Yeah,
they're not the Simpsons.
The cool thing about that, and I think we're just going to continue this on, and I think, Matt, I hope you're also very close when it comes to this, because we're heading down to the number 4 at this point, because it's back to me. And guess what my number 4 is? It's Back to the Future 2 as well. And it's funny you said that. I love that. I wrote down all the little details, the rehydrator, the self-tying shoes, the hoverboard. We got the hoverboard, which we also got based on the same technology, by the way, the flying DeLorean. They're both based on the fun, all the little parallels. And then I also wrote down, I don't know what I was just typing, and I wrote, it must have been nice doing sequels in the 80s. You could just recycle about a quarter of your jokes, because but it's kind of charming. And I said that lovingly. It's one of those things where you found that sort of same. There's a lot of that, he sits in the cafe and puts his head and rubs his. There's all these. The cafe is the same cafe. There's the same mayor joke. The mayor's the mayor. There's always the same. The callbacks.
Those callbacks are what make it amazing, though.
Exactly. Right? That's exactly it. That's what makes you go, oh, I see what you're doing. But then also giving you that whole other dimension of it, justifying those little jokes that say, yes, we're recycling these, but look at why. These are just setting the scene for this other bigger thing that we have.
And what's funny is you're right. So Back to the Future 2 also gives him when he's doing the video game. And then in 3, they recycle that joke where he's actually in the Wild West.
And he actually has to show.
It's just laying seeds, man.
Always do it. So released 89, set in 2015 is the last detail I want to bring up, because I got to actually live through the future that they predicted. And as you said, didn't actually come true, but there it is.
Wow, so, you can talk, but you can video chat, such as what we're doing right now. So
that's correct. Yeah. And I sort of rehydrated a pizza. It took 12 minutes to cook in the oven, which is like pretty close to what I think a rehydrator would take. Except I didn't hydrate it or whatever.
As of January 1st, 2015, I refuse to tie my shoes ever again.
Those shoes are so sick. Those shoes are so sick. I'm obsessed with those shoes. Those are the nicest shoes ever.
Well, there you go. Matrix number 4. What do you got coming up?
Well, Back to the Future 2 is on my list, and it's not number 4. So the conversation will continue
later.
In a while.
In the future?
In the future, absolutely.
This is heavy.
But
keep using that word.
My number 4. It's interesting that my number 4 was the first one that came to my head when you set this topic. I was like, oh, well, I guess second, because obviously Back to the Future 2 would be the first one that came to my head. But second was Demolition Man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fucking
Yeah.
awesome.
Now,
Yeah.
it's interesting because even in the first 10 minutes of that movie, which is set, I mean, the movie was released in 1993.
Yeah.
The first few minutes are set in 1996.
Right.
So this movie is technically in its entirely set in the future as of 1993.
That's right.
And they figured by 1996 you'd be able to freeze prisoners for long amounts of time instead of overpopulating prisons, correct? And but 1990 there was no cryo prison in 1996. I would have heard of that.
What are you saying?
Guantanamo Bay.
Convicted of crimes we are not aware.
Guantanamo Bay.
But let's see. Sylvester Stallone plays, I have it written down, John Spartan, who is wrongfully accused and convicted of accidentally killing hostages while trying to apprehend Wesley Snipes. Simon Phoenix, his character is called, and he's sent into the cryo prison for a long time. They unfreeze Simon Phoenix out of the villainous plot to I guess I'll just get through it. Anyways,
Yeah.
The year is 2032, so we're not there yet. We have something to look forward to.
Sustainable.
Three
Taco
seashells.
Bell's everywhere.
Exactly.
And the seashells.
Taco Bell. That's the best.
It's a world where bad language is against the law. You get fined for that. Taco Bell is considered fine dining, and toilet paper is gone. You have to use, and it's replaced by three seashells.
Headset sex is a thing, so
that's
kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I think
it's a point, everyone. For the seashells, everyone remember. Who forgets about the sex helmets?
I own 3.
Why are you not inviting me over?
What? You guys want to be alone, or somebody open up a separate chat window?
Does this work online?
Something I think most of our movies are going to have in common is video phones. I mean, I think as soon as science fiction was created, I think somebody was like, "Oh, we're going to be able to see each other when we talk on the phone."
Star Trek
did it. Jetsons did it.
And now nobody wants to do that. Anybody video calls you, you're like, no, Will, what are you doing?
Another point about the movie is that future looked kind of cool. They had cool cars and nice technology. There's a few things that people would argue about, a certain in terms of freedoms and rights, which is interesting because while it looked cool, it was dystopian in a sense, because it was a fascist, not dictatorship, but I don't know what Raymond Cocteau's actual office term or title was, but he seemed to be in charge of San Angeles, which is what it's called, and which brought me to another thought in my head. It's like, I don't think the entire world was like that. At some point in that timeline, America must have split into different divisions, because how does the federal government not walk or get in there and say, no, this is against the Constitution or some form of that. So at some point, countries
you've seen America divided. I was gonna say, you've seen things lately, right?
States are divided.
No way. It's the United States. They're not divided at all.
You see that movie and you were thinking, I don't think Taco Bell is the only restaurant in all the world. it was just those little things that kind of stuck with me. You know, the last couple of times I watched it, it's like, yeah, this place is weird, but the rest of the world must be different.
You've officially watched this movie too much.
You know what's really fun?
I'm going to take that copy off your shelf and keep it at my house from now on.
Demolition Man, I'm going to say this one tidbit. That movie's very fun. It's a guilty pleasure. I remember my friend Matt bought that movie online like 15 years ago for like $65. It's like when we were in high school and we had so much money and it was on eBay and he's like, oh, I can't find it anywhere. And then he's like, well, who cares? I'm working. And I will never forget that he paid $65 for Demolition Man on DVD. And I think I own it now. I think he gave it to me.
That's amazing.
He bought that movie for $65.
His entire paper route fortune gone.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Gone.
It does have two of the greatest character names ever. John Spartan and Simon Phoenix both are incredible character names.
And Snipes at the top. Oh my God, Snipes
Snipes
in the 90s.
kills it.
Illuminate.
Yeah,
that's right.
So good.
Illuminate. So great. Scott, what do you got for number 4?
My number 4 is a movie that I didn't think would get on. I rewatched it. I saw it once when it came out, 2017, and I rewatched it again recently. And since it came out, there's been a high praise for it, and I knew it was good. I just didn't know like how much I really, really adore that movie, and I don't care for the first one. So my number 4 is Blade Runner 2049, the sequel. And we'll probably talk about Blade Runner later on somebody's list. I'm sure it will pop up. But with 2049, so when it was first announced, Denis Villeneuve was taken over to direct. I was like, okay, I've seen Blade Runner and one of its 5 cuts, I'm sure. So I'm never really cared for it. I know it was that Harrison Ford movie in the 80s that I never really got. I didn't really care for it. I knew it had its cult following. Comes out 2017, stellar cast to it, Gosling. Looks incredible. That's the number one thing I can say about this movie. The cinematography Roger Deakins does is outstanding. That movie is perfectly lit and it's moody all the way through, and you feel the grit, you feel the rain, you feel everything for it. And basically the story that Gosling's putting together to find the replicant or the clone who can give birth, and it's almost like a Children of Men story because there's people racing. They want to find out the truth on this, and can clones reproduce? And Gosling is he not? Is he this? And then even the second time I'm watching it, picking up on a little bit more clues for that backstory, and then once it finally and Ford comes and joins back in, that final third act I think sings, and really when you get to it, I'm like, oh my God, what an incredible story to elevate like 35 years after of really a forgotten film aside from like the fans that had it. But for Villeneuve to come up with this idea and to really breathe new life into it and continue. And again, it's just more of like a crime film noir detective story, which are great on their own, but set against the backdrop of a very moody 2049 era. The first one was set, I think, in 2019, funny enough. So this one takes place 30 years later. Mm-hmm. And it's just really neat to see. And again, just for the acting and the story and the way it weaves through, I found myself getting engrossed. And the fact that it's set in a very, very realistic future is probably a little too close we'd get there. But more so, it's built upon the universe that it's set before. Blade Runner 2049 is my number 4.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a good one. I love the fact that you like it, even though you didn't really care for the first one.
Yeah, I do not. I try to like the first one. I don't know. We'll talk about it later, but I definitely think this is a sequel that very much improves on every facet of the first one.
Sequels, eh? That would make a good category for a top 5.
Hopefully with better sequels on it.
Yeah. Let's take a look at Clone AB, your number 4.
Okay. So this movie kind of jumped onto my list. I had my 5 picked out, and I kind of decided I was going to, this is on the honorable mentions, that I decided to bring it up to the big leagues just to kind of diversify the list and make it a little more interesting, just because I do love this movie, and I do love the concept behind this movie. And it kind of takes the concept of a movie that you just talked about, but not the movie you talked about, the other movie that you talked about, and kind of expanded on it a little bit. And it's 2013, directed by Spike Jonze, and it is Her.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Wow. I rewatched it for this.
I haven't seen it yet. I've been wanting to see this movie. Tell me about it.
So it's set in, so this and another movie that will come up later in my list are what I've heard referred to as 15 minutes into the future. And what people mean by that is that it's in the near future where it's just recognizable as being in the future, but it's addressing things that we're dealing with now. And so it kind of is in the near future where we have a lot of the similar things. Everyone has their phones just like we have now. And so Joaquin is getting over a really messy breakup, and he's moving towards a divorce. So he's kind of a lonely guy. He for a living, he writes letters for couples. And so he's been doing it for years for certain couples. And it's just kind of a
birthday cards and like
birthday cards, all kinds of different things, like personalized things. And he gets, there's this new technology that comes around. It's a new operating system, and it's an AI. It's an AI operating system, and it kind of, this is before 2013, so it's kind of before Siri and Google and all the rest of that kind of stuff. So kind of a play on that, but it's an actual learning AI that starts learning and becoming a personality, and it's played by Scarlett Johansson, who's the voice. She never actually appears anything in any form. It's just her voice. And so he starts to build a relationship with his AI. And so he kind of gets to know her, and she kind of gets to know him. She's kind of learning about the world, and you see other people starting to have relationships with their AIs, and you see as the film goes on, you see people interacting less and less with each other, and more with, they have their earbuds in, and they're looking at their phones, and they're interacting with their AIs rather than with each other. And so there's a couple moments where he has interactions with his like real friends and his real people around him, and he has to kind of like acclimatize to that again. And so I think it's really speaks to where we're going as a society too, where we're constantly interacting with people on our phones, and we're interacting with people that we don't actually see in person. And like even 2020 now, we've been doing a lot of our interaction through technology, not in person. And I think that this kind of like paves the way to the next step, right? Where we like we have these AIs, right? Where they become our friends, they become in this case, our lovers, and they take on these emotions, right? And it's kind of deals with the same things as Blade Runner does, where can an AI learn to love? Can an AI learn emotions? Can an AI learn what it means to be in a relationship with someone?
Yeah.
And like the film itself is, super heartbreaking where it goes. But I think it's really, really, really powerful. Like I said, it speaks a lot to what I think we are going towards as a society. But anyway, I love Her.
I'm so happy that you put that on there. I took it off because to hear you say the 15 minutes in the future thing is brilliant. That's exactly what it is. I didn't think the future part played enough, but I wanted to get Her so bad. I'm sure I'll save it for another list because I love that movie as well. But your breakdown of it and everything that stands for, that's exactly you. That's an awesome choice.
Thanks,
right.
man. Yeah, I've actually heard the people describe that 15 minutes in the future as when they were describing Black Mirror stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're absolutely, yeah.
That makes a lot of
sense. I kind of equate this movie and another movie that's come to like Black Mirror, like full length Black Mirror episodes.
Her reminds me a lot of like the dating app episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that plays a lot. I think they took a lot from this movie.
But it's such like a coping of like grief and how we society, how do we grieve? We turn in and maybe to what today, 2020 is, but video games and streaming in this, whereas this movie is just him going through the cathartic experience of his divorce by secluding himself off from reality and turning to his ideal of a perfect AI woman. It's genius. I love
finding and not just that, but finding an enabler, an unwitting enabler to carry him even further than he would have had it been just being a recluse reading books, and at least at one point you step out and you go, okay, that's it. But this thing was enabling him to continue. It sounds like, so that's kind of fun. I like that.
Great. It's great. It's a great movie. Spike Jonze too. Spike Jonze directed. So
100%.
How can you not love it?
Yeah, it can't fail. Mike bought 2075. It's your turn. Number 4.
So what I consider to be more plausible than her is my movie in 1995's Waterworld.
I was like, don't act like you don't love this movie.
Waterworld was going to be my number 1 as soon as I heard of this list. It was going to be my number 1 through 5. It's the greatest futuristic movie ever made, and I challenge anyone to argue with me about that. Oh, except for the other 3 I put above it.
People will. From historically, I think people will.
No, because here's the thing with Waterworld. People can argue all they want. All they did, and this is in a time, 1995, when it was just everything you heard was, the media said it was the biggest budget, and it was a flop. Well, 175 million back then was a lot of money. This was a really shoot for the stars kind of film, right? All of it was in the water. Sets were sinking. There was problems with that kind of technical stuff. Of course there was. The whole thing is filmed on the water. If you watch it, it's amazing that they were able to do this back then in 1995. And that's a nothing. That's a shot in the bucket now, a drop in the bucket for budgets with films. It was just that it didn't bring the money back in, and it was never going to when everyone heard about how much it cost, and all you got was negative press. And the director and Kevin Costner kind of got into it. And actually Costner wound up directing the second part of the film because Reynolds, the director, sort of walked away from it, even though he has the credit for directing it. But if you watch the film, it's Mad Max on water. If you enjoy Mad Max, Roadrunner, Fury Road, any of those, this is Mad Max on the water. And it's just as plausible. It just seems a little weirder because we aren't, just surrounded by, we are surrounded by water, but you know what I mean? Let's put it this way. The ice caps haven't melted yet. But if you think about the concept that it proposes at some point in time, and this takes place in 2500, right? It's like far away. Oh. And we're the ancients, they call our time period, the people who lived on land and stuff, right? But when you think about it, say 500 years from now, if that's the scenario and the ice caps melt completely, and that's what's going to happen. People are going to be forced to live on boats and then create these little atolls, which are their little communities where they tie their boats and things together and make walls. And you're going to have people trying to destroy those to take their resources. And everyone's going to look for that last piece of land, which is the whole premise of the movie. And it's well done. Some of the acting isn't the best. But Dennis Hopper kills it. Dennis Hopper is just as good as a villain in that as he is in any other movie, if not more. He's got that witty, that dry humor kind of thing. His eye gets blown out at one point, and he's making jokes about it. Like he gets back up and he's just still yelling, instructions and things.
Can you do speed in this in back-to-back years? I did not know that.
Yeah,
94 speed, 95 this. Yeah, wow, that's sick.
Killed it. And that's awesome. same villain essentially, but it's just I don't know. To me, even though it's hard to say it's plausible because it's so far away, this is where we're going, right? Water's rising. Things are going to get there. We won't be around to see it, right? But it's essentially Mad Max, but the flip. I watched Fury Road the other night. They want water. These people want land. In Mad Max, all they have is dry land. In Waterworld, they'll pay through the teeth for dirt, right? It's like the complete opposite. Yeah. And I don't know. I thought it was really, really well done. So it's always going to make my futuristic list. And people who just sort of say, it's bad just because it has a bad rap, didn't really give it a shot, in my opinion.
I think a lot of the bad rap, like you said, comes from the fact that it was a flop because of the money that went in and because of all the terrible things that happened on set. And so people aren't willing to give it a chance because of the reputation of, oh, it lost so much money.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the actual movie.
Yeah.
It's all about the budget and the money in the box office. We're like, well, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
also something that you could say was like, oh, so you could really turn that around and say, well, so you mean it was made by people who tried to innovate and tried to do things and push the limits and try to go crazy with it. And yes, maybe those experiments cost a lot of money, but guess what? They still made the movie. It still got made. So they must have achieved something somewhere.
There's an awesome podcast. Remember, I was obsessed around Christmas with like Joe Blow's WTF happened to this movie. They do an hour episode on Waterworld, and it dives into like all the behind the scenes stuff. But like all the stuff between Costner and the director, I think he like punched him at an award show or something. They didn't.
Well, they have a
years.
sordid history because like
They're,
they did Robin.
Now.
They did Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves together, and then they came back together and did the Hatfields and McCoys, the miniseries. So obviously there's still, but there was a point in time where they refused to work together, and Costner was like backseat driver directing him, and that was which I could totally believe.
Yes.
So, but anyways,
that's all.
Waterworld.
Yeah.
Now, as a franchise property, I don't know if it still exists, but certainly at Universal Studios, they had their Waterworld stunt show, which sold out for every performance that it was available. So there is a draw to that movie.
Yeah. Interesting. There's definitely going to be a draw to these movies because we've got our top 3 movies coming up next. Top 3 futuristic movies. Mine. One of the things somebody said something. All of our movies are probably going to have video calls in them. Yes, check. But also self-driving cars. I think self-driving cars is huge. No, it's not that one yet. AB, I see your face. We're not talking about that movie yet. Because also another big thing, cloning. I love me a good cloning story. Future cloning stories, self-driving cars, remote helicopters, Michael Rappaport's virtual girlfriend. Yeah, I'm talking about the 6th day. Yes, with Arnold.
What?
The XFL, baby. The XFL is in that movie.
The XFL is in that movie. You are absolutely
They clone
correct.
the quarterback. He dies. And then
oh my God. It is so great. They have a great, I love the way that they like cloning has now become this thing, and they have the shells and they fill the shells, and it's totally unrealistic, but it's a great movie. He's smoking my cigars, and like the whole shebang is just really, really great. It's a movie that I just constantly just put on and on. Now, who's in this movie? Everyone's in this freaking movie. You got Arnold, you got Michael Rappaport, you've got now I'm forgetting his name. I should have written it down there. From Yondu there, Michael Rooker. Michael Rooker's in that movie. A ton of people in that movie. It's a great movie. It's a great romp. It's cool. There's a bit of a twist, or is there? There's revenge. There's retribution. There's, as I said, remote control full-size helicopters, and there's intrigue. I liked it. I like the 6th day with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You know what's funny about that movie? That movie was shot in Toronto, and when he goes to the mall at like the very beginning, it's the Eaton Center. And I remember being a kid, you can see him when it's above. I will never forget this. I don't remember much, but when they're being chased, there's like fish above in an aquarium. That's 100% the Eaton Center. And I remember being like 13 and being like, oh, this is where they shot the 6th day.
Yeah.
And I've never watched that movie since.
He goes to Repet. He has to go to Repet.
Yeah.
Repet. And nacho cheese flavored bananas. That's the last thing I want. He goes, do you want a banana, Dad? And he's like, regular or nacho cheese? See, just because we're talking about depictions of the future, this is a future where they have nacho cheese flavored bananas because yay, GMOs. That's what I gotta say.
That's amazing. I love that made your list. I'm a huge Arnold fan, and I would never have thought of that movie in a million years.
It's set in 2015 as well. It's also set in 2015. Yeah. So I was like, I tried to look. I'm gonna go look for specific dates to see if there's a crossover between Back to the Future and 6th Day.
But yeah, that adds to what I was talking about with Demolition Man. Clearly, it's the same year, but probably not the same area.
No, maybe it's a different area of the world. I see. Yeah, that's good.
All right.
There you go. 6th Day.
That's the explanation for it.
Matt, what do you got coming at us for number 3?
For my number 3, I had to pick a movie from one of my favorite franchises of all time that takes for the most part, primarily through the future. I went with one of the Planet of the Apes movies. I picked the fourth one in the series, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes.
Awesome.
Now, the franchise starts with Planet of the Apes, which we all know is set so far in the future, and it's post-apocalyptic. The Earth is, pretty much destroyed, and apes rule the world. The second movie is not great, but takes place in that same time frame. The third movie takes place in 1971 when some of the apes travel back in time and have, a good time with a dark ending in that movie. Now, released in 1972, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes takes place in 1991. Now, in the excuse me, in the previous film, the apes have a child, and that child grows up to become the main character, Caesar. Caesar he's not owned, but he works at a circus, and his foster father, you can call him, Ricardo Montalban, brings him to the big city for the first time, and he sees that humans have apes walking around the city, and they're enslaved, essentially. And it's explained later on that this happened. It began in 1983 when a plague wiped out all the dogs and cats. Humans were without pets and started taking apes in, and quickly evolved into much bigger. Yeah, of course. Who doesn't? I mean, when you were a kid, there was an easy compromise when you were like, "Mom, I want a monkey," and it's like, "How about we get you a dog instead?"
Yeah.
Well, there's no dogs anymore, so now people are getting.
No pet? How about no pet?
How about nothing? A fish?
Fish. Yeah.
No, how could
David Letterman want to buy a monkey?
Ask certain people if they could live without their dog or their cat. They can't live without a pet, and the difference between them is these pets can serve you. They can bring stuff. You can tell them, "Go get me that," and they'll walk, grab it, and bring it back to you without having to put it in their mouths. It's not like playing fetch. You have a servant. And Caesar sees this as slavery, which it obviously is. And at some point, he separates from Ricardo Montalban and hides himself among more enslaved apes. He's auctioned off to the governor of this area, and uses that position to overhear conversations and gather information to create and organize a revolution and free all of his ape brothers and sisters. And it's by the end of the movie, it is successful, and it's amazing, but extremely. I don't want to say extremely, but it is a very violent revolution. They take up arms and start killing humans. Now, there are two versions of this movie. There's theatrical and the unrated, and the unrated version is even far more violent and a very interesting watch. I suggest everybody see that one.
Do they throw their own feces in that one? Is that
no? They get knives and guns and gasoline and burn the city to the ground.
They go Furious George. They go Furious George.
From Matt TV. That's so funny.
Amazing.
So yeah, my number 3, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes.
What I love I was obsessed in high school, especially with that. And Roddy McDowell's speech, "Where there's smoke, there's fire." That's a scintillating scene that holds up incredibly well for like protest times. Mm-hmm. But you watch that again and you're like, holy shit, there's a lot going on in this movie. And again, I'm just obsessed with that last little 15 minutes of that film. So thank you for bringing it up.
And that's the biggest difference between the theatrical and the unrated is his speech, aside from the ultra violence and then the speech. Because at the end, at one point in the speech, he pretty much says, "And this will be put upon you now." And in the unrated version, that's when all the apes start killing more and more humans. In the theatrical version, he comes back a little bit and he says, "But now, today, we'll put down our weapons and calmly enslave the humans." Essentially, that's how today you'll see the birth of the Planet of the Apes is the final line in that movie, and it's terrific.
Oh, there you go. Spoiler alerts. Yeah. Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. Go see it. I haven't seen any, but we had this conversation for mind-bending movies as well, where I was like, that's when I understood like the breadth of Planet of the Apes, and now I'm like, I got a lot of catching up to do. Scott, what do you got for number 3 futuristic movies?
Let's keep this ball rolling because I haven't used it on my list, and my number 3 is 1968's Planet of the Apes.
Yeah,
I could kiss Matt Robbins through the screen right now. I didn't break this up. So as far, again, when I was in high school, my dad introduced me to these films. I own them on DVD, and I own the new ones on Blu-ray as well, too. And they are an incredible watch. You know, sir, it's an iconic story. 1972, the movie came out in 68, so I believe the mission was 72. They take off. I have it written down here. Time port to the year 3978. And in that, the Planet of the Apes is a thing. You know the story. We've talked about this. The Statue of Liberty, George Taylor, he's enslaved. He gets out, kind of an uprising. Again, at the course of the whole film, it's an allegory for racism and treatment and the experiments. It's a Twilight Zone episode on a film. The reason why I pick it, though, again, being captivated for everything that the movie says at the time about, like I said, race relations and the human and the apes divide as well, and how they think humans lesser than, and you know, as you get through the saga, but you eventually come back and rewatch the first one, and you're like, we did this to ourselves. And it's kind of like what society is going through now. Granted, we don't have a species rising up against us, but we don't deserve the earth that we're upon. We're making all the necessary mistakes to ensure that by the time 3900 comes around, we're not here to inhabit the earth. So you see that movie and we're heading towards a future that's very plausible in the fact that it's in ruins and waste. And I don't know, maybe it is inherited by the roaches because we're not here for that. But I will put Planet of the Apes on with the caveat that I encompass all the future set Planet of the Apes, and more specifically the Rupert Wyatt and 2 Matt Reeves, which I would have picked. I wanted to pick. I haven't used the 1968 Planet of the Apes, so I'm going to use that for starting the franchise, for making it iconic, and giving us the characters that the reboots could build a base upon. But those reboots dive more so, especially what Matt's saying with Conquest and Battle for the Planet of the Apes. They're kind of remakes of that story and how you get to it. And they're just an incredible watch. So for the insightful, for everything it stands for, and again, for the themes, the characters, and again, the iconicness of it, of the twist, of everything it does, 1968's Planet of the Apes is my third favorite futuristic film.
Nice.
Great
I
choice.
like that.
Yes.
Very passionate.
Yes. Say great choice. Right back at you on yours.
Clone AB, you got anything ape-like?
I have 0 apes on my list. There are
Zero
no
apes.
apes to be found. The damn
Seven.
dirty apes are not to be found on my list. So, people have talked a lot this year about the apocalypse, and it's 2020. Stuff's going crazy. We're living through crazy times, and society's falling apart. Back in 1981, I was promised an apocalypse, and this is not the apocalypse I wanted. George Miller presented me with Apocalypse, and it's the apocalypse we deserve, and it is The Road Warrior from 1981 by George Miller. I was debating on which one of them I was going to put on, whether that or Fury Road, obviously, but I went with the like, not the original, but the original one that kind of sparked a whole movement within cinema, and that is The Road Warrior. Road Warrior came out in 1981 and just blew up. It was a humongous success. Basically, like, put all the stepping stones for so many films to come afterwards. Still films that are being made kind of continue to replicate it. It has such great world building in it that you have this world that you don't know exactly what's happened. You know that there's been some kind of catastrophe that's happened that's kind of like destroyed the world. You know that oil and gas are at a premium, like they're super scarce, so that's what people are fighting for. And everyone's on wheels. If you're not on wheels, you're dead. You have to have wheels. And Max Rokitansky from Mad Max continues this story in this one. It's not really a direct sequel, but it kind of takes over. And he comes across this oil refinery, and in the this oil refinery is under siege by these bandits, and they're led by Lord Humongous, which, if you've seen the film, Lord Humongous is absolutely ridiculous. He's this gigantic muscle-bound man that's in like leather straps and like a leather like he looks like somebody from the WWF, like with a hockey mask. He basically is like S&M Jason Voorhees. Like it's so ridiculous. But man, this movie, like I said, has been just replicated time and time again. Just the aesthetics of it, the aesthetics of the bad guys, the cars. What I think I love the most about this is 80s is kind of known for the action hero, right? In the action film. And so the typical action movie in the 80s is all about, you got your Rambos, you got all your Arnold movies, and like Rambo and all those guys have unlimited ammo, right? They're just firing guns the entire movie, never really even have to reload. They're just blown away guys. Whereas Road Warrior, everything is scarce. Everything in the Road Warrior there's a scarcity to food, right? He's literally eating dog food, right, out of a can. He's constantly looking for, he has a shotgun, which is empty most of the time, and he's looking for shells, right? And most of them crumble. And so there's the point near the end where he has to send a kid out on a moving vehicle to get a shell off it, because he doesn't have a shell for his gun, because it's so scarce, right? It's like the anti-80s action movie, because there's everything has a price to it. There's scarcity to everything. Everything has a price. Everything has consequences to it. And that's why one of the things I love about the Road Warrior is that there's these things that are at stake, rather than just this mindless like action 80s thing where nameless faceless bad guys get offed by the main guy, and it's just constantly just killing without any consequences. And there's every death has a reason. Every death, you feel every death. The people from the oil refinery, when they start dying off, you start feeling it. You start feeling for these people that are getting killed. And the same thing when the bad guys start getting killed too. It's not just random meaningless deaths. They're pretty crazy deaths and pretty meaningful deaths. So I love the Road Warrior. I love the franchise. I think that George Miller is a mad genius. And when you watch the stunt work, the behind the scenes stunt work, and the stuff they did for Mad Max and for this one, like it's insane. It's stuff that will never ever ever get done again, because it's so crazy, like off the charts. Anyway,
nice.
Road Warrior. My number 3.
You like that movie a little bit. I think you like that movie just a little bit. Of course, you're talking about like Mad Max: The Road Warrior, and like you're talking to a bunch of people. Of course, our audience who are going like just gone through like basically like 4 months of isolation and stuff. There's a lot of things that you can see during isolation that you can go like, I see where Mad Max got it. Because you look at Mad Max, you go, why are people dressed so funny? Why is everyone wearing a mask? Why does everybody either have a shaved head or really really long hair? And then you go, oh, I get it. They must have had some sort of virus, because they couldn't get their haircut, so they either cut it themselves at home and shave their head, they let it grow long. They have to wear masks every time they go out. They got used to wearing their PJs every day, and now they forget what fucking clothes they should wear when they go out. That is how it happens.
That's unbelievable.
I will say that the star of the film for me too is I think what's his name, Vernon Wells. The guy with the mohawk is his name's Wes, and it's like Humongous's second hand. It's the guy who plays in Commando, one of the main bad guys in Commando.
Is his name really Vernon Wells, former Major League Baseball player?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure his name's Vernon Wells. He's wearing assless chaps. And so like when I was watching it, I'm like, he has to wear assless chaps because he does all these like flips and jumps over things. Like if he was wearing like regular pants, that would have ripped when he was.
Can't do that in jeans.
Stuff.
You can't do that in jeans.
You gotta have assless chaps. You gotta have the mobility.
You have to
flips and jumps.
That's right.
It just wore jogging pants, but
whatever. Those are hot, man. In the desert.
Leather chaps aren't.
Yeah. Not if they're assless. You got that air. You got that air on the cheeks. Little wind on your cheeks. Mike, what do you got coming in at number 3?
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so the premise for my number 3 film takes place in 2027, so we're counting down. It's in London, and the youngest person in the world has just died.
Oh,
and that is Children of Men.
Right.
Yes.
That falls under, like I said, my top 4 sort of things that I believe to be quite possible, and as I go down the line, more and more possible. This, I don't know about the whole infertility thing, but I mean, anything's possible when it comes to things like medical. But the thing in this movie to me that is the most plausible is, and what I think is successful in a lot of futuristic films, is playing off of what the government is going to do. And in this film, that's sort of at the forefront of this. There's a sort of an uprising, a group of sort of rebels, if you will, that are, you're not quite sure what they're up to. The government's doing one thing, they're trying to do another. All the while, they're trying to rescue this girl who they have discovered is the only pregnant woman in the world, because everyone's infertile. No one can have children anymore. That when that 18-year-old died, the world wept because that was the youngest human being on Earth until that point. And so it's such a big deal when they discover that there's someone who's pregnant. So they're trying to keep this under wraps, and these sort of rebel type people are trying to get her somewhere. But what's most plausible to me is just the way the government is doing things. There's famine happening. Obviously, we said infertility. There's a flu pandemic. Sounds familiar. There's war going on. And what has the government decided to do? We're going to round up the illegal immigrants, and we're going to put them into cages and set them on buses, and we're going to start killing them. And that's like so parallels what every government seems to think they need to do when there's a problem. There's a problem, let's blame the people who aren't like us. And it's so frightening to what we've seen happen in other world wars, what we see happening right now in the States and in other places. And you watch this and you go, wow, that along with the concept of, some sort of medical thing happening where maybe children can't be born, or maybe there's some sort of virus as we're dealing with, all of that happening at the same time. You watch that film and you go, oh, this could happen at any moment. And there's certain things in the film that really hit me. Like they go to an abandoned school at one point where they have to meet up with somebody. And like we've experienced this for 4 months. There have been no children in our schools, right? And just a really eerie parallel. And somebody in the film, I can't remember who says it, but the quote is, "It's very odd what happens in a world without children's voices." And so that was just like, whoa, that one hit me. And so it's very powerful, right? But the most powerful scene in that movie, because they're trying to get this woman who's pregnant across sort of country somewhere else, and eventually she winds up delivering. And they still don't want people to know this because they don't know what they'll do, right? They don't know how they'll react. Will they exploit this? Will they try to kill this? What will they do? Will the government try to use it for their own gains? Anyways, there's a war going on between the army and the rebels, and they're all fighting. And the baby comes down the stairs with Clive Owen, who's the main character, and the woman who gives birth. And in the middle of this like war zone, buildings getting blown up, shelled, everyone just stops. And they walk down the stairs, and they all just stop. And they just watch as they walk down the stairs. And there's this like couple minute scene of just silence as they walk. And then all of a sudden they're past that. And then a bomb goes off, and then everyone just starts shooting again. And it's the weirdest, eeriest scene that you'll see in a movie. But that's my number 3, Children of Men.
I like that. I like your choice. I remember watching the movie, not enjoying it at all. I thought it was too slow. It's not paced. But I will give you this. That scene you just described, though, was very poignant. I mean, everyone talks about the one shot that they do in that movie as well. There's a very long one shot in that movie, which is insane. Which is That's great, very, very insane. But the one I remember, because you brought it up, is exactly that, where no one's seen a baby. I mean, generally in 18 years, no one's seen a baby. Most of them, for probably longer, have not seen one. And there it is. And it's that silence and then the contrast. But then again, where were we?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would even back it up further into that scene too. Like I may talk about this film again later, but I would back up even further into that scene. Right, they're in that building, right, and there's the battle is going on, the full on battle is going on, and you have all the refugees that are hiding from the government. They're in that thing, and they hear the baby crying. You hear the baby crying, and they start like going out into the hallway to look just to get a glimpse of where the baby is, and they start getting shot and killed. And like I watched it the other night, and I was in full on tears because they're getting murdered, or they're getting shot by these random bullets just to get a glimpse of this baby, right? Of a baby. They're willing to die just for a look at the baby,
for a glimpse of the future.
A glimpse of the future, because they basically have had nothing, right? And so they see this thing and they're just getting murdered. And then, like you said, he goes down the stairs, and then everything just freezes. And like that scene, like we've just said, is so insanely like powerful and just brings me to tears every time I watch it.
I would argue that they were going out into the hall for a glimpse of the past more so than the future, but yeah.
But
so
Whitney's wrong. Whitney is wrong. The children are not the future.
They're the past.
But she's wrong. She was wrong, clearly.
Obviously, because the children grow up and they become adults. So obviously, children are the past. Whitney, God.
There is a movie on Netflix. I was gonna say this for off camera, but there is a new movie on Netflix called Only, and I just watched it. It just came out, I think recently, but it's about an epidemic and a pandemic that wipes out only females. So it's very, 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 very similar to Children of Men. It doesn't quite reach even close to the same levels of that film, but rewatching it, you just see like a lot of the same parallels where society needs to round up the women, and the women are dying off, and this, and how are we going to procreate and reproduce, and again, it's mass chaos. So again, watching that movie made me appreciate Children of Men more, because it's quite the better movie in every way. But there's a lot of things that it's often, especially in this time, often replicated but not duplicated, because that movie is stellar.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. Moving on to the number 2 position of top 5 futuristic movies. Mine may be on one person's list, maybe 2 people's list. I don't know. But I like this movie covers the gamut of everything. Is it because of its depiction of the future? A little bit. I like movies that are set a little bit into the future. Those are always kind of fun as well. This one's set in 2023. And it's a very long movie. It's a big piece, which I love as well. And it's Avengers End Game. Yeah,
okay. It is. Okay.
All right, well, there you go.
Amazing, but yeah.
Wow. No, it's fine. My favorite is that everyone's agreed not to like my last 2 movies, which is awesome. No, it's perfect. Why would I pick the same movies that you do?
No, it's one of the greatest movies ever made. I'm down with that. It's
biggest
it's a
movie.
50 out of 10. So yes,
you're
right.
Biggest money maker. It's 5 years into the future.
It is.
For
You're
sure.
absolutely right.
Yeah, no, it works, man.
Mike, anything you want to say?
I was just laughing at the reactions more than anything. That was all. It's a good movie.
No, I'm just shocked. This movie is number 2
it's amazing.
in anything. This movie is. I'm just more floored. This movie is scintillatingly good. But it is. You just don't think it. You're right. The 5-year snap.
And that's the thing. And it is. I think that's what's crazy about it. It is only 5 years in the future, and if you put yourself in that situation of the snap, and what if you look ahead and Ant-Man and his daughter, you know what I mean? That whole situation, and be like, whoa, what the hell? How would I react to that? But I mean, in general, that's there's that aspect of it. There's the whole because we're talking about the future. It's the time heist. The whole time heist, and then the ability to go back and revisit all the moments in the other movies, and to take advantage of that, and to bring that back into the future, and then screw it up, and just completely screw it up. But is it screwed up? No, 1 in so many million chances, right? It's an exciting movie. It's really long. And I always, when I was discussing this with Sarah, my wife, I said, I don't know, man, Marvel movies, they're so far-fetched and they're so crazy. Like, they might as well all be in the future. You know what I mean? Because it's so crazy. Like you'd immediately imagine those take place in the future, but no, they take place today, except for that one, which takes place 5 years later. So, There's another movie that could have taken its place, and it almost did, but I went for Avengers End Game, my number 2 futuristic movie. Boom.
Love it. No, and like you said, I think we're all just laughing because we were shocked at the pick. I was like, because I can't argue with it. It's amazing. Right. It's one of the greatest movies.
But why the shock? I'm curious
because you don't think of it as that, right? You don't like, even though you're right that it is a futuristic movie, right? It's 5 years in the future, and you're right that you see the effects and everything, but you don't. My brain doesn't go there. My brain doesn't go that. Oh, that is a futuristic movie.
An hour and a half of it going in the past, so that's half the movie right there.
Yeah.
So you automatically think that, but you're right. You don't see that it is, but it is. Again,
but it's great. It's definitely great. So
I guess the best thing of it, if you are looking at it as a film in the future, you look at the effects that the future holds in that universe. And again, it's the whales coming in the New York harbor and pollution being down, and the eerie shots of the empty stadium, which is so prevalent again now. And there were the jokes going around when the pandemic started of like, this is Thanos' snap, and and so you see that now, and you see the effects of pollution and places in LA and smog clearing up because of that, because there's less cars on the road. So again, it is very prevalent. So what a great choice.
I mean, I think for me, that as well as like Star Trek and things like those, even though I get that they're humans and there's Earth elements, they're so outer spacey to me that I don't put them into our future, because those kinds of things seem so impractical. Doesn't mean it's not a great film. It's a great, but it's like, that's why for me it's like, oh yeah, but like those aliens, really, like, you know what I mean? So but it's a solid film, obviously.
And that's the point. I was like, that's exactly it, Mike. I think you're right. Is that I didn't think of those first because I imagined them in the future, but according to the story, it's 1996, right? But Iron Man seems like a movie that takes place in 2026 itself. You know what I mean? At least that, I hope. Can we get an Iron Man armor in 2026? Come on, let's do it. We can do it.
I think in they're like one of the scenes, and it's one of the great scenes in that film is and Scott's talking about it. Cap leading the group, right? The
portal scene.
No, leading the small group,
support group.
The support group.
Oh,
leading
the support group. Yeah,
and then they kind of deals with the effects and deals with the people dealing with loss and grief, and I think that's one of the great scenes, and that's kind of one of the great things about it being in the future is that you get to see the effects that it has on the regular people and along with superheroes like Steve Rogers, right? Yeah. Like it's taking its toll on these guys. Yeah. Great.
There you go. Avengers End Game, my number 2 futuristic movie, even though it doesn't all take place in the future. Matt, what do you got at number 2?
Okay, my number 2. This is straight off the poster. It's the year 2022. People are still the same. They'll do anything to get what they need, and what they need is Soylent Green.
Wow.
Soylent Green is people.
I was gonna say
spoilers.
And that's my number 2.
I'm not asshole enough to say that.
Oh my god.
But so this takes place, I mean, not too distant from now. I don't have the year that it was released though. I think it was like it must have been 70 or very early 70s.
It was the 70s.
But thanks to overpopulation and pollution, and in the description it's called some kind of environmental catastrophe, but I mean you could just call it the greenhouse effect or global warming. Population of New York is up to 40 million people, and 20 million of them are unemployed. People, and the rest of them are really scrounging for jobs. Charlton Heston is in it. He plays an NYPD cop, and he lives in a shoebox size apartment with another person, and that is a situation you would consider yourself lucky to be in this movie. the richer people, of course, have much bigger apartments. They have access to fresh food and hot and cold water. And some of those apartments are furnished with concubines. So, you decide what kind of life you want to live in. Yeah.
Okay.
But because of all of the huge food shortage, a company called the Soylent Company has developed low cost, food stuffs. The Soylent Red and Soylent Yellow, they're made out of the word Soylent comes from soy and lentil. So they do their best to scrape whatever they can to, make these little things. But the best tasting and most nutritious, as they claim in their advertisements, is Soylent Green. Now, their description of Soylent Green is it's made from plankton that is still surviving in the ocean, and ships are bringing that in, and this is what they're making Soylent Green out of. Of course, like you guys have all said, that is not the case. And Charlton Heston plays a cop who is investigating a murder of someone who works for the Soylent Corporation, and throughout his case, he discovers that Soylent Green is made out of people. It's not just people who die off. These people go to a euthanasia clinic and commit suicide because they don't want to live in this world anymore. I've had it. I'm going to go lay down on a bed. Nice big screen of, the Earth That Was plays with, classical music playing. They drink something and they die. Well, his roommate is one of those people. And at the very last second, he tells them what he's discovered the truth of. And he's like, you have to, tell the people what's happening. And he does this by following his roommate's body from the plant into a dump truck, from the dump truck into a factory, conveyor belt into this vat of, green liquid. And out on the other end, little Triscuit size biscuits, green, heading out to market.
That is, I'll give them this. That's efficient. That is efficient.
Did you ever
baked and everything, the whole thing?
Did you ever see Snowpiercer? They copied the same kind of thing.
I haven't seen Snowpiercer, but I know that's
it's at the start of the movie,
good.
but it's the same kind of thing. Yeah.
I just finished the show.
I mean, first of all, I would argue that if there's famine going on and these people don't want to be alive, I don't see the problem here. But if the people,
I thought the same thing.
I don't see the problem here. But second of all, I think it's all sort of based on the premise of that old Jonathan Swift book. Jonathan Swift being the guy who wrote Gulliver's Travels, and he writes a lot of satire, and he wrote that I forget the exact title, but something along the lines of how to solve the famine problem in England is to eat the homeless. And it's a satire, but it's the same kind of premise, right? There's lots of things that are based on that. But in this scenario, I know the big reveal is they're people, but it's like they're people who didn't want to live, and you're hungry, and you wouldn't be living if you didn't eat those people. Get over it.
Yeah, it's called single. I think it's people helping people.
Yeah,
guys, it's a cookbook that says how to cook for humans.
How to serve man
on there. Oh, how to cook 40 humans.
40
how to
serve man. How to serve man.
Humans.
Love it.
So dusty. It's so dusty.
That is definitely my number 2.
Cool.
Soylent Green.
Excellent. I'm gonna have to see that movie one
super
day.
underrated.
I'm not going over to dinner at your house. Just
yeah. Wait, what are you talking about? His house? You're the one who wants to serve up people and think it's a good idea.
Yeah. You're the first one who brought it up.
You're the vegetarian.
You're the first in line.
Sure?
I don't want to, but I see why they needed to.
Oh,
okay.
Sure.
All right. Scott, what do you got coming in at number 2?
So my number 2 is set in the future, set in the year 2054. It's based on ironically enough, it's based on a short story that was written in 1954. And what I'm talking about is 2002, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring my man, Tom Cruise, Minority Report.
Right.
Yeah. And Minority Report, from the day I saw it, I knew I was dying to get it on a couple lists already. It is one of my all-time favorite action, kind of thriller, So I knew as soon as you said future films, I was like, fantastic. Minority Report is the story of John Anderton, played by Tom Cruise, who runs the pre-crime, and it's It's basically stopping murders before they happen, and it's the incredible scene. Obviously, what's iconic is the hands and all of this, and almost like paving the way for things like iPads and stuff. And you see Tony Stark. It's very similar. So cool at the time though. And what it does is with the precogs, they have future abilities and they can hone in on murders before they take place, so using various clues and stuff like that. So very pulse pounding, putting together and stuff like that. And one day his name comes up as one of the murderers and he's like, this is crazy. So he goes to investigate more. Obviously it's this whole story. Why would the guy who runs pre-crime be involved in murder? And as he's investigating this and you find the reason, and at the midway point you get the answer to the story, and it kind of sets it off on another path, and mainly for a multitude of reasons of it being an action movie at its base. It's a very fun action movie. It's Spielberg, it's glossy, and it looks great. But as you dive deep, you get into this idea of free will versus destiny and fate, and what do you believe? And they have these incredible discussions, and it's almost the very beginning of Colin Farrell. It's really sort of his debut in 2002, and they have these incredible discussions of, how can somebody be convicted, judge, jury, and executioner, and convicted of this crime if they only think it? They actually don't do it. And every time I watch it, it's these movies that I really gravitate to that have a larger theme behind them. And so there's that. And then you dive even deeper, and it's, you kind of get into Tom Cruise's character psyche. It's the loss of a child, and he kind of has a little bit of a drug addiction in this. And you're like, Jesus Christ, this is a very layered science fiction film. And it's set in the future. So you get some of the cool stuff. You get the advertising on the eyes. As a former ad man, I think that stuff's cool. When he walks into the Gap and he's got the other guy's eyes, that's fun stuff. And it's stuff that kind of paves the way. That's, it's kind of like Google Glasses, where you could get that in society and the future. But again, at its core, it's this incredible, thought-provoking, and that's all of Philip K. Dick's, which, again, going back to the Blade Runner stuff, he's incredible at putting this very thought-provoking thematic themes behind it, and then Spielberg comes in, gives it his coat of paint, but for, again, a multitude of reasons, nonetheless, being that Tom Cruise is one of my favorite actors as well, and this is one of his best. I do pick 2002's Minority Report as my number 2 set in the future film.
I will say nothing about this movie yet.
Oh, is it? I
actually did the audiobook last week. And,
so did I. I did it. Sorry to cut you. I did it. It's on YouTube in 2 parts. Yeah. Did you do it on YouTube?
No, I have it on. I have it on one of my apps.
I tried to get it adapted on from books, and then I tried to, and I was like, I'm only doing the audiobook, and it's like 2 hours long. I'm like, the day before, and I was like, this isn't really like fair. So I was like, I'll save it later. And then Futuristic came up. I was like, awesome. Things work out funny. Love it.
I love in the book and in the film. I love the dilemma at the end and it's different characters in the book and then in the movie. The Max von Sydow character in the movie, he puts the dilemma: do you kill him and fulfill the prophecy, or do you not kill him and your entire system crumbles, right?
Yeah.
The system of pre-crime crumbles, right? And I love that, the dilemma, right? Is what you're talking about, whether, do you believe in fate or do you believe in free will? I mean, like, you have your catch-22 there, right? Do you do this? Do you go down this path? Because either way, you're done, right? And then same thing in the book. The book is a similar case, right? It's like, you can choose this or you can choose this, but either way, you lose. So,
and what's great about it too, and it's kind of echoes a little bit of our society, where the Minority Report is the opposite of, in the movie, they have the Majority Report, and they have the 3 precogs, and they all have differing opinions. So they kind of just like fuzzy the facts and kind of come up with like the actual what happens. And again, there's the debate on how many of these people we have convicted are innocent. And at the end, you're right, you break the system and they're all free to go at the end, monitored, of course. But again,
I was just going to say, I love that part because that's in the book. And it was like, they free all the people that were convicted, but they keep close a watch eye on all the people. That's pretty fun.
Like, again, it's almost the idea of like our society. Like, we don't know. We're judge, jury, and executioner in what we do. And you can never really prove, and how many people are serving for something they didn't. And it's a time, like I said, it's the time-honored themes that go so well, and that was just kind of, everyone was firing on all cylinders on that one. So
yeah.
And we will continue this in about 20 more minutes.
You've seen the future. The red ball has come in.
Speaking of continuing topics, we've already talked about my number 2 film. My number 2 film is from 2006, Alfonso Cuarón, and is also Children of Men.
Oh, there you go.
Children of Men is in my top 10 films ever. I adore this film. I love everything about it. It's like I alluded to earlier, with the 15 minutes into the future. When I saw this movie, I was like, and this is back in 2006. I saw it in the theater a couple times, and I was like, not only is this possible, but this is almost probable. Like, I mean, not just the idea of the infertility thing, but just the world chaos. And you look at 2020 now, and the world is in chaos, just over a virus. But you get these. To me, the whole film centers around the loss of hope. What happens when you remove hope from the world, and there's no future, there's no hope, there's nothing to live for. We think about us as a society and us as a people. You live for different things. A lot of people live for family, right? And to pass something on to a family. What happens when that's getting taken away? What happens when you have no future? You have nothing to pass on. At the beginning of the film, the youngest person, 18 years old, is killed, and now there's nothing. And once the last person dies, there's nothing to pass on. There's nothing to strive for. So when you take that away, you look at how society and all the things that we've built up just crumble to nothing and mean nothing. And so you have all these people that are running around for their own political gains and trying to manipulate things for their political gains. And you see the whole thing centering around this one glimpse of hope. And like we were talking about earlier, that hope is what people are willing to kill for. That hope is what people are willing to die for. And it's incredible to me. Like you see just that picture of how powerful that idea of hope can be in the world. And this film, like we've talked about, the cinematography is off the charts. And we were talking earlier today about Oscars. It didn't get nominated for cinematography, which is a travesty. It is an absolute travesty. Like, how does that happen? How does that happen? It's one of the greatest feats of cinematography in the last 20 years, even to now, and it didn't even get nominated for cinematography. It's like, what? Come on.
They didn't pay enough people. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Apparently.
Yeah,
but anyway, Children of Men is my number 2. We talked about it already. We talked about it now. I love this film.
Nice. Number 2, him, Mike.
Oh, her.
I knew it was going to be on yours.
We just Andrew and I are just
trading.
Changing notes.
Yeah,
just changing notes. I won't say a lot about it. Although I will say it, to me, is the most plausible and the one that I understand the most. I watched this film, and I mean, I love Spike Jonze, and the film is beautifully shot, but what resonates with me is that, as weird as this might sound, I believe that people could fall in love with artificial intelligence, like with it. It's called OS1 in this movie, but Samantha is her name. I watched the film, and the whole time I'm just like, I have to remind myself, oh yeah, that's not really a girl he's talking to. That's like a robot, a machine. It's completely plausible to me. And if I, were on my own and this were a thing, and I could probably live that life. I could be happy in an apartment with someone who could understand and listen to me and talk to me and ask me how my day is, and I could vent to them and listen to them, and that's all I would need, So I watch this and I go, yep, I get it. And you watch all the scenes in the movie, like Andrew said, where more and more people are walking down the streets with what are essentially like AirPods kind of in their ears, and just talking, but to no one in particular because they're talking to their OSs. And I think to myself how much we see that already and how much I could totally live a life like that. So that's the more frightening thing about this film to me, I think, because I'm like, oh yeah, if things were different, that Joaquin Phoenix Theodore, his character, that would be me. That would totally be me.
I agree.
And it's also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Well, there's like, it's almost, I haven't seen it, but I'm assuming it also deals with that whole thing where people say, people who seem to let's say take all their news and their knowledge from Facebook, but they don't realize that, well, you've surrounded with people who are like you and agree with you. So obviously anything you put out here is going to come back in agreement with you as well. So that's that whole thing about having this OS. This OS is learning. It's a learning, but it's learning from you.
Yeah,
so
what's really cool though is as they talk about it and you think about that, right, and you get to know her more. You think, oh, well, every OS will get along with you, but you hear in conversation with other people that other people are starting to date their OSs, and some of them can't stand the person they're with, and they rebuke them, and they say, "I don't want to date you." And
people are dating other people's OSs.
Yeah, so it's just hilarious.
Yeah.
So it gets fairly convoluted, but also then even more plausible. And what's funny is you watch this whole film without giving too much away. Somewhere near the end, I'm just like, I get angry at the OS itself, not at the human. Like you'd think I'd be like, "What are you doing dating this OS?" And in the end, I'm kind of like, "You suck, Samantha." Like
you're like, "Wait, we could just turn her off. We could just turn off the device. It's gonna be over."
But I don't want to give too much away because it's really well done. What I do like about it is that they don't make it like you'd think. Like if you've ever seen Lars and the Real Girl and how weird that is, like the concept of he's with a real doll, and but in this. There's people. It's fairly accepting. There's a couple people that are like, "Oh, you're dating your OS," but he goes out with Chris Pratt, who's his friend and his girlfriend, and he's with Samantha, like in his ear, and they all have her in their ear, and they're double dating, and it's so.
And the guys go off and have their little time together, and the girls are chatting together on the picnic blanket.
Yeah.
And it's just hilarious.
Anyway. Yeah, so Spike Jonze makes it feel real, and I mean that's what I love about him. So there you go.
It's really funny too. I didn't bring up I'm glad you did too, and I couldn't get it back on the combo. Is there was like that wave of Oscar buzz for Scarlett Johansson, and when you watch it, you're like, she owns this movie, and she's not even in it, but her voice. A supporting actress nom is not out of the question for her acting in this film. And I feel like she was probably robbed of that. I mean, again, the rules in that, but she is that good, and it's just her voice, and she could have rightfully got an Oscar nomination.
Yeah, well, because you think of like how great some voice actors are in animated films, like Pixar, movies, and then you think this is even harder because at least in a Pixar film, like Tom Hanks or whoever you can see them and hear them. With her, you only hear her, so it's even harder.
And it's easy. They could be like, "You're a cowboy. You're lanky. You're tall. You're a cell phone."
Yeah.
Picture yourself. You're a cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you Dr. Clawing it over there? Are you like are you
this guy likes to hang out. This guy likes to hang out in my office, and he's walking around.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Are we on honorable mentions now? Is that what
we're on honorable mentions? We got honorable mentions, Loki. You want to give them to the honorable mentions? Oh boy. What do I have here? My honorable mentions, no explanations at all. Demolition Man. I know. Spider-Man Far From Home.
That was a mistake. They didn't mean to do that. They put 8 years later, and even the director, John Watts, was like, "Oh yeah," or
it's 2020. I have it 2024.
Homecoming fucked up though. Sorry, I thought you meant Homecoming. Homecoming does it 8 years later, so they do 2012 and then 8 years later, and that was an error that they messed up. But you're right. Far From Home takes place after the snap. Sorry,
right after the snap, after the whole thing. So 2024, and then. Because I saw it on the list, I was like, I do like this movie a lot. Big Hero 6.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
2032 takes place in San Francisco. Another San Francisco. I love that. So that's my 3. Matt?
Jetsons the movie. For sure.
He wasn't joking. He was not joking.
No. You reminded me. It's like,
wait, not the Jetsons meet the Flintstones? Not that
one? That's directed video. I don't think so. Minority Report.
Yeah.
and any Star Trek movie.
Okay.
Oh.
Nice.
Okay.
So I'll start with my honorable mention is this masterpiece, Wrath of Khan.
Nice.
That one is an honorable mention. Looper.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Cool.
fuck it, I like iRobot. I'm gonna put iRobot.
Oh, all right.
Fuck it, that movie's fun.
Shocker.
A Will Smith movie.
I know.
Go figure. Yeah. AB?
Okay, this is one I pulled off of my list. It was in my top 5. I pulled it off. It was set in 1997, so our past, but this is Night from 1981. Escape from New York.
Oh, okay.
Wow, awesome.
I was hoping to get to talk about this one, but I'll save it for another list. Hopefully, Gattaca.
Is that with Ethan?
Ethan Hawke.
Okay,
Yep.
That is
And
a
Uma
great
and Jude Law.
Jude Law. I've
It's
never
so
seen it. but-
good.
And the other one is Upgrade,
Oh yeah.
which is Venom done well.
Yeah.
Which is also the name of the pimp in Idiocracy.
That's right.
Is it
Yeah,
Upgrade?
with two D's.
Upgrade.
With two D's. Yeah.
Why not?
Oh man,
Why
that's
not?
amazing.
Why not?
Why not?
Mike?
Clockwork Orange, Hunger Games, Road Warrior.
Nice.
Oh, nice. Yeah. It's good.
Good.
It's good. All right, number ones. We're down to the number one top futuristic movies. We talked about mine already, and this the movie that made me go. I saw this movie and I was like, okay, I want to talk about this movie. What does that fit in? It was Minority Report. It is a great movie. We've already talked about, the essence of the movie, the things I really like about it. I like the little details. I like the 6 sticks. I like the 6 sticks. I love the jetpack. So the 6 sticks, they're like a taser that makes you puke.
Mhm.
So that it's like what a great weapon. What a great weapon, because it just makes you throw up, and it's like it's good. It's inoffensive. They have jetpacks. They have the self-driving cars and the whole eye scanning and the ads and all that. The personal advertising. It's like you can see that happening. My favorite thing is the every time I talk about this, because this is the one thing I want to see before I die, is self-driving cars. It's the Lexus, the whole system, and you see that the Lexus being built, which is a really cool scene. But it's the way they drive, they merge, and how no one has to do anything, and they even take you all the way up to your apartment. It's smooth, they look sleek, and the whole system works. That's like the one thing I take away from Minority Report. That's a small detail. Is like I love the self-driving car system. My big takeaway from this movie is that if this movie had been made earlier, like in 1990, you would have looked at that future and said, wow, that is ridiculously advanced and that's never going to happen. But because of when it was made in 2002, you see the stuff and you go, no, I can see that. And the more you look at it, you go, yeah, I could see those things actually coming to fruition. Minority Report, love that movie.
It's a fun watch for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Matt, what do you got at number one?
My number one is, of course, Back to the Future Part 2.
Yeah.
You said futuristic movies, and it was the first one that came in my head. That future, 2015, the movie came out in 1989. I was 4 years old, so I didn't see it right away. But when I turned around 10 and I saw it and I understood and I did the math, I was like, I'm going to live to see that future.
Well,
I wanted-
hopefully.
No, it wasn't.
Don't know.
Hopefully, yeah.
But it was, and it was like counting the days till Christmas. Of course, I saw it on a movie, so it's going to happen. They went to the future and showed us what will, come. Flying cars, hoverboard, the Pepsi, the video phone, being able to watch 20 channels at one time. That was, of course, appealing to anyone who watches TV. What else? The fashion, of course, the shoes,
The outfits. Yeah.
I bought this hat in July of 2014 on eBay, and then I just put it in my closet because New Year's Eve to New Year's Day I was going to wear it, and I think I wore it every time we did trivia the entire year of 2015. Because why aren't you people wearing stuff like this? It's that year. Get with it.
Get with the times, man.
Get with the times, exactly.
That's great.
But yeah, it's number one because for virtually my entire life, I wanted that future to happen. We talk about all these movies that take place in the future. That is probably the only one, except for maybe Star Trek, which is kind of more utopian. There's really nothing bad going on in that future. Everything, I mean, I've mentioned in Demolition Man is a fascist dictatorship. Conquest of Planet of the Apes has an ape revolt. What is it? Soylent Green, pollution, overpopulation. Nobody wants to live there. You saw Back to the Future Part 2, and well, except for Mike, who wants to eat everybody.
I mean, I'll have a taste. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying no.
It's a nibble.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I saw that and I was like, okay, great. The world is going to end up being a wonderful place in 2015. Back to the Future Part 2 is my number one.
Nice. I
Great.
like it.
Cool.
So, of course, I like. We all agree on that one.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
I remember hosting a trivia event on that day, October 21st, 26th,
Yep.
2015. Yeah.
Yep.
And we did when one dude showed up he had the future Marty jacket, he had the hat, he had the whole thing. It was really awesome. He made the jacket himself.
Awesome.
I'm trying to remember. I remember because I was there that day. I'm trying to remember if I think you guys decided he won the costume contest.
Yes.
But I think he left early and couldn't claim his prize. Do you remember that?
No. I think he pretty much stayed the entire time. Maybe someone dressed as Doc.
Maybe he was erased from existence.
I think he had to go back. He had to go back in time.
Go back and change it.
Yeah.
I remember that day, and there's so few people. Like you advertised costume contest winners getting prizes, and so few people showed up in costume. Yeah. All I did was showed up in this hat, and I got third place.
See, it was that easy. It was that easy. We were supposed to actually we were supposed to get a DeLorean for that day for photo ops and stuff, and that fell through. Wow.
Because they ruined it, right? The train
it was trapped in 1955. It was in 1955 with the other 6.
There's a lot in 55 at one time.
All right, Scott, what do you got for number one futuristic movie?
Dun, 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 dun. We're gonna go. As soon as you said this list, dun, 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 dun. No, we're going Giacchino's score because we're going 2009, the reboot Star Trek, directed by J.J. Abrams.
Yes.
So for me, such a special movie at this time. I was a big, obviously, through the early 2000s, I really wedged my heels into Star Wars. But in 2009, I was very starved for like a space action, something fun. And I wasn't much of a Star Trek fan, certainly not in high school, university, growing up. Didn't really care, never got into Next Gen. A lot of people my age certainly did. But then my first real foray into the universe, 2009 Star Trek. And if you want to talk about a movie that completely spoke to me on a multitude of levels, it's absolutely that film. Now, watching it in hindsight of going back and owning and watching the original series and having an appreciation for what Shatner did and that whole thing, as well, you see the care put into this reboot and the really fresh take that Kurtzman and Orky and Abrams put in together. And at the time, you cast unknowns, and the unknowns become names later on. But you go see this film, and they give it a really, really, really cool coat of paint on it. And I know a lot of Star Trek purists don't like that film because it takes away from kind of their thought-provoking idea of what Star Trek is, and certainly what Gene Roddenberry wanted to encapsulate. To that I say the future's now, old man, and that movie is fun as hell. And what I really like about that movie too, at the forefront of that, is the performance of Chris Pine as James T. Kirk, and they really reboot the character itself, and they make him a total snarky asshole dick. And when he's playing the character, he's not quite the Kirk and he gets there, and the good for the sake of good. But for this one, they reboot the whole timeline, and in the original, he grew up with a loving father, and in this one, his father takes command of the ship at the very beginning and dies within 12 minutes of being the head of the USS Calvin, and he grows up without a father. So he's very rebellious, he's very angsty, and he's very handsome because it's Chris Pine. So in it, there's lots of bits, and this would probably be one of the films I could rewatch on an island. If you gave me 5 movies, I would probably pick 2009 Star Trek. What? They talk about that on The Office. I would probably pick 2009 Star Trek as one of my desert island films.
It's a good one.
I think that scene with Bruce Greenwood as Captain Pike and Hem in the bar when they're talking and he challenges him. And he's just saying, do you like being the only genius repeat level offender in the Midwest? Maybe I love it. And he's just squandering all his talent until Pike gives him that speech and says, your father was captain for 12 minutes and he saved 800 lives. I dare you to do better. And then it cuts to him driving up and seeing the Enterprise. And then you get that super cool, one of my all-time favorite movie lines. 4 years? I'll do it in 3. And then it cuts on and he meets Bones and he gets in and he does the Kobayashi Maru, and you get to see that you hear about in Wrath of Khan. And then again, I haven't even begun to discuss the idea of bringing Nimoy back and injecting Nimoy, kind of shepherding the new timeline and how they kind of do that. And again, at that point, I didn't have an affinity for Nimoy's performance as Spock. And then you go back in hindsight knowing that he gave his life 50 years of playing that character. And then you see this film and you're like, man, there's so much love and care into doing this, honoring the original franchise and bringing it into a new universe and a new realm. And while I do think Guardians of the Galaxy came along later and did it better, and Force Awakens does it bigger, there is such a soft spot in my heart for 2009's reboot of Star Trek. So for that, Star Trek, the universe, everything Mr. Roddenberry created, that is my number 1.
Nice. I also am a big fan of that movie. It took all the things from Star Trek that were cool, but it took all the things that I felt was missing from Star Trek. Like Star Trek needs more space battles. It needs more, more of this, more of that, and it brought it. And then one of my favorite things is the friendship between Bones and Kirk. From the beginning, right from when they meet, the way they meet, and how it's carried through. I love that.
And what's great, I rewatched this movie again too, and like I said, it's a brisk watch. But again, the professional rivalry, and it goes back to kind of what I said with the Hamilton talk, but that you get with Spock and Kirk, and they hate each other, and then you get the respect and working together, and then ultimately in Into Darkness and Beyond, they're 2 peas in a pod together, and you can't have one without the other. Peanut butter and jam, and so.
Again, and that cast.
The cast is totally good. I mean, as
just
far
come
as
on.
Urban going on and Saldana at this, and Bana, was a star at the time, but Peg had just kind of broken out, and then Pine's a relative unknown.
Yeah,
it goes that ages so well, that whole cast. You got JJ at a perfect time. It was awesome.
Love it. Love it.
Really like that movie, and a lot of people, they call it, a reboot or a remake or a prequel. It's actually a sequel disguised as all of those.
Yeah.
Because Spock, he has his own timeline from the original series on and goes back to this one and starts an alternate timeline. Which, so it's a sequel but he goes back to make to prequel era and remakes or reboots with an alternate timeline.
It's essentially like a remix of like a song. That's all it is. You just took the original core, kind of remixed it, and it's, again, a different coat of paint. They give it a cooler, sexier, faster style, and again, it works. It works at the time. And other ones have copied it and done it better, and that's fine, but for films that are set in the future, you can't talk future without Star Trek. So I'm here to defend Star Trek as my number 1. So
I like it. Very nice. Very nice. AB, what you got coming up at your number 1 futuristic movie?
Speaking of defending movies, my number 1, these guys were shocked and befuddled because I didn't put it on an earlier list, and they wanted me to put it on there, but it didn't really fit for me. It's way more on this list, and I'm so glad that I didn't. I'm glad to put it on here because this is my number 3 film of all time, and that is 1982's Ridley Scott's Blade Runner.
Yeah, there you go. There they are.
There. So I for this, I'm actually going to choose. For the most part, I don't really care about director's cuts. I don't think they make a huge difference. But in the case of Blade Runner, the final cut and the director's cut are 1,000 times better than the theatrical cut. So I'm going to go with the final cut on this one. Is what one I love the most because I think it makes the most sense and it's what Ridley Scott intended for it. You could talk to your blue in the face about the effect that Blade Runner's had on film, and film scholars have talked about it forever. The dawn of neo-noir, just the pure aesthetics of the film, the production design is off the charts. You look at it now, it actually supposedly took place last November, but it looks incredible. It looks like you could release this in theater right now and it looks incredible. The gigantic video screens, you have your flying cars in there, you have your video chat like we've talked about and things, but for me, what makes this movie amazing, and it's a theme that I love over and over again in movies, we've talked about a bunch of them on the show, is what makes humans human, and can AIs basically be the same as humans? Can they feel the emotions? Can they love? Can they experience the same things that humans can? And Blade Runner deals with all that kind of stuff, but it also, to me, it goes a little further too, because you start questioning whether Deckard is, and that's one of the things I don't like about 2049, because it kind of answers that. In a roundabout way, it kind of answers that he is not a replicant, to me. And like, it kind of makes it super obvious that he's not a replicant. And so at the end of Blade Runner, 1982 Blade Runner, you question whether he is or he isn't. And one of the things I don't like, but anyway, one of the all-time greatest characters for me is Roy Batty, and Rutger Hauer is incredible, and he steals the movie for me. He has some of the best scenes in the film. He obviously has the big quotes, like "Tears and Rain," and his big soliloquy at the end. And I can't talk enough about how much I love this film. I've seen this movie hundreds and hundreds of times. Like I said, it's my number 3 film ever. One of the things I forgot to talk about is the score of it is incredible. Vangelis has that synth score, but also injects these the love themes, which are all done on saxophone, which is to go with the noir theme, right? They have all the noir films from the 40s and the 50s always had the saxophone jazz soundtracks. And to me, that that's just brilliant. One of my favorite scores ever, Vangelis. But yeah, I love everything about this film. Blade Runner 1982, number 1.
Very nice. Once again, a ubiquitous choice. Mike, what do you got coming up at number 1?
All right,
final pick.
I got 2 quotes for you. These are 2 of my favorite quotes to tell you what this film is. So the first one is, "People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people." That's quote number 1. And quote number 2 is, "Beneath this mask, there's more than flesh. Beneath this mask, there is an idea, Mr. Creedy, and ideas are bulletproof." And this is my number 1 futuristic movie, with probably my favorite antagonist as hero, V. And the movie is V for Vendetta. I wasn't positive if I was going to put this on this list, but I gave it a rewatch. I mean, I knew how much I loved it and how much I loved the graphic novel, but watching it again, it blew everything out of the water in what I was talking about for realistic, plausible scenarios. And I just love sort of the guy that's going to come in and sort of fight back, right, against sort of this tyranny, right, this fascist government. For people who don't know, I know all you guys know, but for people who don't know, essentially, there's a civil war in the States, a huge civil war, and it spills over and it spills into Britain, and eventually there becomes this sort of almost like a Nazi kind of state, but it's with like the Nordic people and the British people. They sort of form this faction, and they claim superiority essentially over everyone else. And they start doing more 1984 things than 1984 does, right? Like they're blacklisting music and controlling the media and shouting things like England prevails and very Nazi-ish type stuff. And there's a high chancellor played by the amazing John Hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Like just so chilling. And all you see of him for the most part on the screen is on a big screen, just shouting orders at his sort of lesser in command that have to go and carry out his demands. But I don't know. It's beautifully filmed. I love the whole sort of underground revolution of things where, V sort of is going to undo this whole government because he's been wronged in the past, and sort of systematically eliminate each of these people that have done him wrong and that are in charge, and sort of train, in a way, Natalie Portman's character, Evie. And I'm not a huge Natalie Portman fan in general, but she's amazing in this movie. I find that she does a great job. And I think this was like the same year the last Star Wars came out, I believe, 2005. And so good for her doing those two films that year. But I don't know. There's some chilling scenes in it, but I think the coolest one, the goosebumps inducing one, is towards the end there, where all the people have the masks and they all come out and enter the streets from different ways. And they're all wearing those masks, and essentially the government and the soldiers kind of realize, oh, this is it for us. And they're just sort of walking through, and the soldiers put their guns down, and it's pretty chilling, but it's very plausible. And this is another one of those undisclosed futures, kind of could really be any time. They don't really say when it is. A lot of people sort of have attested it or attributed it to 2020, but I think it's just because of how things have paralleled with like things going on in the States and stuff. But it's one of those could happen at any moment, kind of, especially when you look at all the way European governments are voting, and they're all going very, very sort of right wing, and we'll control everything, kind of. So, but just, I don't know, very powerful film.
That's great. Oh, it's a good pick, man. Never really occurred to me that. I mean, yeah, that does take place in the future, but as you said, it's kind of a very relatable. You see that all the time, right? You see people wearing those masks at all sorts of protests and affairs that sort of have that same message where, like you said, the people should not be afraid of the government. Government should be afraid of the people.
Remember.
So you said the States is going to have a civil war, a second civil war. That sounds crazy to me.
Yeah,
how could that possibly happen?
I don't see that.
I don't think
civil war in the States. No way.
I don't think the first one ended yet. To be honest with you,
they still have the flags flying.
Yeah, the flags are still flying. Yeah.
They're just in phase 2 right now. They're trying to bring it back.
We're in phase 2 still.
Yeah. So there you go. That's it for the top 5 futuristic movies. You guys did what a great job. Not a lot of some overlap as to be expected, but not as much, and a lot of good unique choices as well. I like that. I look forward to seeing the quiz as well on this topic, because once again we're going to be covering, well, I mean, it's going to be probably the 5th quiz in a row with Back to the Future in it, but I mean
all Back to the Future. Well, we haven't picked back, me and Scott haven't picked Back to the Future stuff yet, right? Oh yeah, so we still have it on our agenda. We can still throw it in there.
I haven't talked about Back to the Future 3 yet, so whatever.
Westerns the next topic.
Favorite Westerns.
Favorite Clint Eastwood movies. It counts.
There you go. That's so great. Clint Eastwood movies. I love it. Well, that's it for this week. Make sure you do check out the quiz and subscribe to the channel so that you find out all of the different Mack Flash 5 episodes that were coming out. We are lining these up week after week. We are working our way towards all sorts of topics, including some live discussions with you, the viewer. So be on the lookout for that. Gentlemen, anything to add? That's the talkative
the future
bunch.
Is not set.
Yeah.
Future is not set. Well, that's about it for us today. Thank you very much for watching the Mack Flash 5, and we will catch you guys next time. Say bye, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Goodbye,
See you
everybody.
in the past.
Oh yeah. Yeah. See you.
There's
in the
a
past.
crossover I want to see.